please, I'm sorry, okay? I need you to come back into the course. All right. Come on, we don't have a lot of time.
Just
please.
shut up.
Give me this.
Fuck you!
When audiences first encountered My Cousin Vinny in 1992, it seemed like just another quirky courtroom comedy. What no one realized at the time was that this little film would go on to become a staple, not only of pop culture, but of law school curriculums across the United States. Behind its blend of slapstick humor and razor-sharp legal strategy lies a production filled with near disasters, last-minute changes, and wild trivia that most fans never hear about. From almost hiring a real judge to play himself, to wardrobe accidents that became iconic, to an Oscar win that sparked a genuine Hollywood conspiracy, the making of My Cousin Vinny is nearly as unpredictable as Vinny Gambini himself. The story begins with the filmmaker's quest for authenticity. Screenwriter Dale Launer and the production team knew they weren't just making another fish-out-of-water comedy. They wanted the legal proceedings to feel real. Launer spent weeks sitting in actual Alabama courtrooms, studying how trials unfolded in the Deep South. He was so struck by one particular judge that he suggested the filmmakers cast him to play Judge Chamberlain Holler. To Launer, this idea wasn't just about novelty. He believed that having an actual Southern judge reside on screen would lend the movie an unprecedented realism, a grounding force against Joe Pesci's Manic Vinny. But the studios were wary. Putting a non-actor in such a pivotal role, particularly one who held a real judicial position, raised both ethical and practical concerns. What if jurors recognized him from a movie during actual trials? What if he simply couldn't act? The gamble was too risky. In the end, the team turned to Fred Gwynne, whose towering frame and meticulous preparation made him so convincing that some viewers genuinely thought he had legal training. Gwynne studied hours of courtroom footage to mimic the cadence of real judges. Ironically, his performance was so natural that many Southerners assumed he was a real retired judge. If Gwynne brought gravitas, the film's ending almost tipped the balance the other way. In early cuts, the story concluded not with Vinny and Mona Lisa driving off into the sunset bickering about their future, but with Judge Holler offering Vinny a permanent job as a legal consultant in Alabama. Test audiences reacted poorly. While some found the idea heartwarming, others thought it betrayed the very essence of Vinny Gambini. This wasn't a man who wanted to join the establishment. He was a scrappy, rough-around-the-edges New Yorker whose success came from refusing to play by the rules. To turn him into a courtroom insider would have been a betrayal. Director Jonathan Lynn, who had studied law at Cambridge, understood better than anyone that the integrity of Vinny's character mattered more than tying things up neatly. So the ending was cut and the final film left Vinny untamed, driving away on his own terms, still messy and loud, exactly as he should be. Even before the cameras rolled, though, the project nearly lost its star. Joe Pesci, fresh off his Oscar-winning performance in Goodfellas, almost turned down the role of Vinny Gambini. Pesci worried that playing a loud, over-the-top comic character might damage the credibility he had earned as a serious dramatic actor. He didn't want Hollywood to see him as a clown when he was finally being recognized as a heavyweight. But both Launer and Lynn pushed back, insisting that the role wasn't just comedy. It was sharp, layered, and ultimately about intelligence. Vinny was more than a buffoon. He was often the smartest man in the room, even when others underestimated him. That argument won Pesci over, and once committed, he threw himself into the part. He fine-tuned Vinny's Bronx accent, improvised lines, and brought an unpredictability that made every scene feel alive. Ironically, the very role he feared would undermine him instead broadened his range, proving he could excel in both crime drama and sharp comedy. Legal circles still debate one of the film's most pivotal moments, the tape recorder scene. When Vinny secretly records Sheriff Farley admitting that the tire marks could belong to another car, the case turns in his favor. But would such a recording even be admissible? In Alabama, where the film is set, only one-party consent is required, meaning Vinny was legally within his rights. Still, critics argue that the way the evidence was introduced was shaky, and that the lack of discovery could have triggered a mistrial in real life. This little piece of fictional courtroom maneuvering sparked real debates in legal communities, with professors using it in class discussions about admissibility, ethics, and chain of custody. The scene wasn't just dramatic. It became a teaching tool, a rare moment when Hollywood and legal precedent aligned in unexpected ways. Of course, No discussion of My Cousin Vinny is complete without mentioning Marisa Tomei's transformation into Mona Lisa Vito. Tomei, a Brooklyn native, leaned into the role with such commitment that crew members often didn't recognize her on set. Her accent, wardrobe, and mannerisms, from the exaggerated walk to the way she held her purse, were so meticulously constructed that she seemed like a different person. One production assistant even tried to remove her from the wardrobe truck, assuming she was a random local hanging around the set. The hair, the nails, the leopard prints, the slightly nasal voice. It was a complete metamorphosis. Audiences were stunned to discover that Tomei looked and sounded nothing like Mona Lisa in real life. This dedication paid off with an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, though her win would later become one of the most controversial moments in Oscar history. The connections between My Cousin Vinny and other films of the era also run deeper than many realize. John Avildsen, who directed The Karate Kid, was originally attached to direct Vinny before Jonathan Lynn took over. And with Ralph Macchio cast as Bill Gambini, the link became even more obvious. Macchio, best known as Daniel LaRusso, once again played a young underdog from New Jersey, this time wrongfully accused of murder. Instead of Mr. Miyagi guiding him, it was Cousin Vinny. Both films relied on similar structures, underestimated characters triumphing through resilience, culminating in climactic showdowns, a karate tournament in one, a courtroom cross-examination in the other. For Macchio, Vinny was also a chance to step away from his teenage image and into more mature, grounded roles, anchoring the film with understated emotion, while leaving room for Pesci and Tomei to shine. Even costume mishaps became part of the legend. One of Mona Lisa's most iconic outfits, the pink tuxedo-style ensemble she wears during her courtroom testimony, was never meant to appear in the film. It was a last-minute wardrobe mix-up. Originally, the plan was for her to wear a far more subdued, conservative look. But when that outfit wasn't available on shooting day, the costume department had no choice but to put Tomei in the flamboyant pink number. Director Jonathan Lynn worried that audiences wouldn't take her testimony seriously if she looked like she was heading to a bachelorette party. But Tomei turned the blunder into brilliance, delivering her expert monologue on car suspensions with so much authority that the contrast between her appearance and her knowledge only heightened the humor. What could have been a disaster instead became a defining image, one that fans still recreate at conventions. The production itself wasn't free from chaos. While shooting a scene in a real Georgia courthouse, Joe Pesci became so immersed in his role, they began improvising unscripted lines with real legal jargon. His delivery was so passionate that one intern sitting in the audience thought Pesci was genuinely disrupting a real trial. The intern even stood up to object, forcing filming to pause while the misunderstanding was cleared up. In another twist of casting history, Danny DeVito was once considered for the role of Vinny before Pesci was locked in. DeVito, with his scrappy energy and proven comic timing, seemed a natural fit, but as the script evolved, the filmmakers realized Vinny needed both comedic chaos and legal credibility. Pesci's volatility and intelligence struck that perfect balance, the combination that made the character unforgettable. Mona Lisa's courtroom monologue, a technically flawless explanation of positive traction and car suspension systems, nearly didn't survive the editing process either. Studio executives worried audiences wouldn't buy that a young woman in a loud outfit could deliver such a convincing technical testimony. Screenwriter Launer fought to keep it, insisting that it was both realistic and essential to Mona Lisa's character. With Jonathan Lynn's legal background backing him up, the scene stayed, and it ultimately became one of the most beloved moments of the film. Tomei rehearsed relentlessly with technical advisors to ensure her timing and pronunciation were perfect. The result was a scene that not only entertained but also symbolized the film's central theme. Intelligence doesn't always come in the package people expect. Production challenges extended beyond the courtroom. While filming outdoor scenes in Georgia, the crew encountered a literal wild boar that wandered too close to set, chasing a lighting technician and causing an entire day of delays. Wildlife control had to be brought in, and the crew began installing barriers and elevating sound equipment to prevent future incidents. Some actors, including Pesci, refused to walk alone at night after that. Meanwhile, smaller props gained unexpected cult status. The transcript for the famous, what is it, Uda exchange between Judge Holler and Vinny was typed up as a gag by the prop department. Only 2 copies existed, but one eventually surfaced at auction, selling for over $6,000. Reproductions are now collector's items, especially among lawyers who treat it as both a joke and a badge of honor. The film even inspired real courtroom chaos. A man in Ohio once cited My Cousin Vinny in an actual case, arguing that his lawyer's cross-examination didn't measure up to Vinny's. In another case, a young attorney quoted Pesci's line, "It's a simple question, Your Honor," in his closing argument, only to be reprimanded by the judge. These incidents underline the irony of the film's reputation. While quoting in court may be frowned upon, professors across the country still assign the film as a teaching tool because of its surprising accuracy. Even the smallest details in the film carried weight. Vinny's infamous wrinkled suit, mocked by the judge, wasn't a random gag. The costume department deliberately abused the fabric, crumpling it, stuffing it in bags, even sleeping in it, to achieve the perfect bad look. Pesci reportedly couldn't stop laughing whenever he caught his reflection, to the point where entire takes had to be red-hot. In another scene, a seemingly simple line took 27 takes to film. Not because of the actors, but because the extras kept bursting into laughter at Pesci's delivery. The solution was to rotate extras until enough of them could keep a straight face. Underneath the comedy, the film's structure was influenced by detective fiction. Screenwriter Launer admitted that Vinny's courtroom strategies were modeled after Sherlock Holmes's method of elimination, by disproving each witness step by step. Vinny mirrored Holmes's logic. Eliminate the impossible, and whatever remains must be the truth. His grilling of witnesses about dirty windows, cooking times, and car models followed this methodical process, turning overlooked details into decisive revelations. The title of the film nearly derailed the project as well. Early versions bore names like Brooklyn on Trial and The Gambinis Go to Court, but studios feared these sounded too ethnic and would alienate mainstream audiences. Launer fought to keep the cultural identity intact, and eventually the compromised title My Cousin Vinny was chosen. Ironically, the very identity executives fear became a cornerstone of the film's charm. Perhaps the most lasting controversy came not from a courtroom, but from the Academy Awards. When Marisa Tomei won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress, rumors swirled that presenter Jack Palance had accidentally read the wrong name. The Academy quickly shut down the conspiracy, pointing out that Pricewaterhouse accountants were on stage to prevent exactly that sort of error. Yet the whispers lingered for years, casting unfair doubt over what was, in fact, a richly deserved win. Tomei's performance wasn't just funny. It was nuanced, layered, and transformative. Today, her win is rightly celebrated as a triumph for comedic acting, a genre often overlooked by the Oscars. Adding to the film's legend is the fact that Fred Gwynne, who so memorably played Judge Holler, was cast only days before filming began. The studio had worried audiences wouldn't take him seriously, knowing him primarily as Herman Munster. But Lynn saw something others didn't, a mix of authority, warmth, and gravitas that could anchor the courtroom scenes. Gwynne's performance, full of gravely intonation and dry delivery, became iconic, and sadly it was his last. He passed away shortly after the film's release, leaving behind a legacy that would echo in legal circles for decades. And then, of course, there's a finale. Vinny's climactic cross-examination isn't just one of cinema's most satisfying moments. It has been studied in law schools for its accuracy. Professors use it to demonstrate how to dismantle expert testimony with calm, precise questioning. Vinny doesn't rant or bully. He exposes assumptions, highlights overlooked details, and builds doubt piece by piece until the prosecution's case collapses. It's both hilarious and legally airtight, a testament to Jonathan Lynn's legal training and Launer's meticulous research. Even real judges have praised it for its pacing and logic. From wild animals on set to conspiracy theories at the Oscars, from abandoned endings to nearly disastrous wardrobe malfunctions, the making of My Cousin Vinny was as unpredictable as the film itself. What began as a quirky courtroom comedy became an enduring classic, celebrated not just for its laughs, but for its authenticity. The film reminds us that brilliance doesn't always come in the package we expect. Sometimes it wears wrinkled suits, pink tuxedos, or speaks with a Bronx accent. And just like Vinny Gambini, it leaves a legacy on its own terms. Messy, loud, and unforgettable. Perhaps the most lasting controversy came not from the courtroom, but from the Academy Awards. When Marisa Tomei won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress, rumors swirled that presenter Jack Palance had accidentally read the wrong name. The Academy quickly shut down the conspiracy, pointing out that Price Waterhouse accountants were on stage to prevent exactly that sort of error. Yet the whispers lingered for years, casting unfair doubt over what was, in fact, a richly deserved win. Tomei's performance wasn't just funny. It was nuanced, layered, and transformative. Today, her win is rightly celebrated as a triumph for comedic acting, a genre often overlooked by the Oscars. Adding to the film's legend is the fact that Fred Gwynne, who so memorably played Judge Holler, was cast only days before filming began. The studio had worried audiences wouldn't take him seriously, knowing him primarily as Herman Munster. But Lynn saw something others didn't. A mix of authority, warmth, and gravitas that could anchor the courtroom scenes. Gwynne's performance, full of gravely intonation and dry delivery, became iconic, and sadly it was his last. He passed away shortly after the film's release, leaving behind a legacy that would echo in legal circles for decades. And then, of course, there's a finale. Vinny's climactic cross-examination isn't just one of cinema's most satisfying moments. It has been studied in law schools for its accuracy. Professors use it to demonstrate how to dismantle expert testimony with calm, precise questioning. Vinny doesn't rant or bully. He exposes assumptions, highlights overlooked details, and builds doubt piece by piece until the prosecution's case collapses. It's both hilarious and legally airtight, a testament to Jonathan Lynn's legal training and Launer's meticulous research. Even real judges have praised it for its pacing and logic. From wild animals on set to conspiracy theories at the Oscars, from abandoned endings to nearly disastrous wardrobe malfunctions, the making of My Cousin Vinny was as unpredictable as the film itself. What began as a quirky courtroom comedy became an enduring classic, celebrated not just for its laughs, but for its authenticity. The film reminds us that brilliance doesn't always come in the package we expect. Sometimes it wears wrinkled suits, pink tuxedos, or speaks with a Bronx accent. And just like Vinny Gambini, it leaves a legacy on its own terms. Messy, loud, and unforgettable.